So, if you guys eat turkey at Thanksgiving, what do you do at Christmas? Hi, welcome, come on in. My name is Aoife, and today, as it's Thanksgiving in the US, I am taking the Thanksgiving book tag. Of course, me being Irish, I don't celebrate Thanksgiving, but I feel like it's always nice to give thanks to everything that you are thankful and grateful for over the year, and spread a little bit of holiday cheer while you're doing it. The first question is friends and family. Name a book with characters who feel like family. This might be cheating a little bit because they actually are family, they're each other's sisters. But to me, they also feel like my family, and that is the Sisters from the Brown Sister trilogy by Talia Hibbert. I feel like this is the perfect description of a sibling relationship. You would ride or die for each other, but also they can piss you off quite a lot. This book series follows the three Brown sisters, Chloe, Danny, and Eve. They each get their own books, they each have their own separate lives going on from each other, but they do, of course, pop up in each other's books. I absolutely adore these. I will admit that Danny is my favorite of the Brown sisters, but I do feel like I have the chaotic energy that Eve brings to the table a little bit more. But I have loved every single one of these books, and I cannot wait to get reading them again and immerse myself back into the world of the Brown sisters. Next up is Fallen Leaves. Name a book that didn't exactly meet your expectations and fell a little bit flat. And for me, that is Well Met by Jen DeLuca. I had such high expectations for this book. It was a Renaissance romance, but set in our own modern world because the characters are of our contemporary world, but attending a Renaissance fair and fall in love with each other. I felt like it would be a good kind of gateway to a historical romance, but I just couldn't connect with it. I found the characters really irritating. There was something about the setup of the story itself that I just didn't really gel with either, and I ended up having to DNF it. There are a couple of other books in the series. I do know this, but I'm not entirely sure if I'm going to go into those other books as well. Maybe I will down the line. Let's see. Next up is Thanksgiving Dinner. Name a book that you want to read every single year at this season. I have two. First is Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. This is such a calming, comforting, wintry read. It follows the four March sisters, their trials, their tribulations, growing up, liking each other, not exactly liking each other, wanting to kill each other, and how they're coping with their father being away as a chaplain during the Civil War in the 1800s, and then growing up, finding their own families, creating their own families, but still staying close to each other. I absolutely adore this book. I read it again last year as a part of a buddy read with some people on Instagram, and it just brought me back to that little magic that I had when I was a child reading it for the first time. The other book that I always read around this time of year is A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. I read this every single Christmas Eve without fail, and then go straight away to watch the Muppets Christmas Carol movie. The best adaptation of that book. There is just something Christmas cheery about Ebenezer Scrooge realizing how materialistic he has been, how miserly he has been, how much better off he is than other people in his community, how they actually see him and how he can change all of that and turn it around. And I absolutely love the kind of ending that it comes to, the joy that you see on Christmas morning when he realizes that he hasn't missed anything, there's still time. It's such a lovely read. And it's super short. I think the audiobook is only about 3 hours. The book itself is maybe about 120 pages. It is a definite Christmas recommendation for me. Next up is Turkey. Name a book that has a bird in it. And this is such a tenuous link. But in Alice's Adventures in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll, when they're playing croquet, the croquet bats are flamingos. Does that kind of count? Yes. If not, there's a dodo at the start of the book. Next up is Ham, a book that made your eyes glaze over, maybe because it was boring. And for me, this one is How to Kill Men and Get Away with It by Katie Brand. I really had so much high expectations for this book. I had so much high hopes for this book. Not because I wanted any kind of help tips about it. I just thought it would be a really engaging read. It would be really interesting to see how the hijinks that she was getting into, the things that she was getting into, and it fell completely flat for me. There was nothing redeeming about our main character, Kitty. There was nothing that enamored me towards her. All of the side characters, well, were absolutely awful people. I did not enjoy probably a single second of reading that book. I think the best part about it was that it ended. Next up is Dinner Rolls, a book that melted your heart and made you feel warm. I just finished this a couple of days ago, and I think it was the perfect time of year for me to read it, and it was Rosalind Palmer Takes the Cake by Alexis Hall. This is the first in the Winner Bakes All series. It follows the titular Rosalind Palmer as she is on Bake Expectations, a baking show shown in the UK with a load of contestants where they go through blind tasks where they have to make these extravagant bakes at the end of the episode. Sound familiar? Yes, it was. But this book was amazing. It had all the warmth, all the excitement, all the love of Bake Off. So if you are a Bake Off fan, this is definitely something that I think you should pick up. I will say that there is a content warning for an on-page sexual assault in this book. It was handled very well, in my opinion, but if this is something that you are going to struggle reading, do be aware of that. It comes up about 70-75% of the way through this book. I absolutely love this. I finished this exactly on the day that the Bake Off final was on, and I feel like that was the perfect time to read it. If you are going to be missing Bake Off over the next couple of months, if you feel like you need a little bit of an injection of the spark of joy that can bring you, pick this book up. Next up is Mashed Potatoes. Name a book that has a white cover. And as you can see behind my head, I've got loads of them. But I'm going to specifically name two, both coincidentally by Irish authors. Quite a lot of the reprints of Marion Keyes books have got white covers and the same kind of a white cover but different coloured writing for the title. I really love that very minimalistic, very simplistic design, but it still combines all of the books together. You know exactly who it's by, you know exactly what it's going to look like. I absolutely love Marion's books as well. This one is The Break. It was released in maybe 2018, 2019, and it's about Amy and Hugo, who have been married for about 15-20 years, but one day Hugo is getting a little bit of the 7-year itch and he goes off to find himself in Southeast Asia for about 6 months, leaving Amy behind to pick up the pieces and to help their children through when something completely unexpected happens. Another one with a white cover and another one where the series all have white covers is the Oh My God, What a Complete Ashling series by Sarah Breen and Emer McLysett. This follows Ashling, who is your kind of quintessential country Irish girl. She works in Dublin. She comes back home to her parents every single weekend. They live down in the country. She has a boyfriend that she met when she was very early in secondary school, and they have been together ever since then. And she is just the exact picture that comes to my head when you talk about Irish women, specifically of my age range, when we were growing up. It's so perfectly Irish. It's not really going to travel very well, I don't think. So if you're not very familiar with Irish culture, if you have never met an Irish person before, it's probably one that you are going to struggle with. But for people who are immersed in this world, this is an absolutely amazing pickup. Next up is Gravy, a book that you're not totally sure why you love, but you do. I'm kind of spinning the question a little bit here because the book I'm going to talk about is It Happened One Summer by Tessa Bailey. To date, this is the only Tessa Bailey book that I have read and enjoyed. I gave it, I think, 4.5 stars, and I absolutely adored it. I was absolutely encapsulated by it. I don't know what it was. Maybe it's because I read it as a physical book rather than an audiobook, where the audiobooks have not been the best discovery for me for Tessa Bailey's books. I think it's maybe because it's a kind of a loose Schitt's Creek retelling, where Schitt's Creek is one of my favourite TV shows at the moment. So having that little connection to the book, to the characters, maybe gave me a little bit more of a boost. I don't know what it was. I honestly don't know. But when I read this during the summer, I sped through it. I could not put it down. And it ended up being one of my favourite books of the entire summer. It's just that nothing else has ever hit the mark since. Finally is Pumpkin Pie, a dessert book that you love. I absolutely adore this trilogy. I know it's YA and I have kind of moved away from YA recently, but this book just screams comfort, happiness, coziness, and that is the To All the Boys I've Loved Before trilogy by Jenny Han. I absolutely adore Lara Jean. I think if there was any character from books that I would love to be best friends with, it's probably Lara Jean, because I feel like we would be the exact same person. We would love to just sit home together and watch like cozy shows together, like, well, the To All the Boys I've Loved Before adaptation, and sit together with like a bunch of cookies in front of us and some hot drinks and curled up in blankets with books on our laps. I feel like Lara Jean and I would be really great friends if she was a real person. Those are all of my answers to the Thanksgiving book tag. Are you marking Thanksgiving this year? How do you generally celebrate it? Or what are you looking forward to most about the holiday season? If you would like to leave a comment but you can't think of anything you'd like to say, then of course, just leave the turkey emoji. Don't forget to like and subscribe because I have new videos up every week. Now, get on out of here.